By 1997, the Justice League was not exactly in a good place.
The 90s had begun with the book being bolstered by the creative team of Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, and Kevin Maguire. The title Justice League International was renowned for its humor and banter from the likes of Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and the Guy Gardner Green Lantern. The book proved so popular that there was an expansion of the line, with Justice League Europe, Justice League Task Force, and Justice League Quarterly debuting as well, not to mention the parody title Justice League Antarctica.
But good times don't last forever, and over time, all three creative team members left the book. Further creative teams attempted to continue the humor, but to little success.
Eventually, Justice League International would merge with Justice League Europe. Justice League Quarterly was dropped, and a new title, Extreme Justice, was added in hopes that it would bring in the grim and gritty crowd. It didn't really work.
Part of the problem lay in the team's lineup. For a group known as the world's greatest superheroes, the Justice League really didn't seem to feature the world's greatest superheroes, namely DC's trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Outside of a few supporting appearances, they hadn't been in the book for years. And all due respect to fans of characters like Nukulon, Silver Sorceress, and Ice Maiden, those characters on their own really weren't going to move the needle.
So it was decided that the Justice League needed to take a back-to-basics approach. A miniseries called The Midsummer's Nightmare saw the lineup rebooted with the original 7 League members of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter, joining with the remnants of Justice League Europe.
A Midsummer's Nightmare would in turn lead to a new ongoing series titled simply JLA. And today we're looking at the introductory story arc written by writer Grant Morrison with art by Howard Porter and John Dell that sees the Justice League tackle a new threat to the planet Earth. This is JLA, New World Order.
In Washington, D.C., the president is preparing to host a fundraiser when he receives word that a superhero escort named Firehawk is mysteriously taken ill. Before anything else can happen, the shadow of a large flying saucer overtakes the White House.
Ooh, I know what happens next.
However, before Jeff Goldblum can leap into action, Superman arrives on the scene as the saucer lands on the White House lawn. He tells the Secret Service to stand back and be on guard as beings emerge from the saucer. The leader introduces himself as Protex, leader of the Hyper Clan, and they are here to save the Earth.
Outside of their leader Protex, the other members of the Hyper Clan include Speedster Zoom, Shapeshifter Fluxus, Tronics, who has a sonic cry, a giant walking armored tank known as Armech, also Zenturion, Primate, and Amortal. The last three's powers, I have no idea what they are.
The HyperClan sets out to help humanity by terraforming the Sahara Desert. The Man of Steel is unimpressed, pointing out the desert was an ecosystem unto itself with its own specific lifeforms that were now just completely destroyed. Flooding the area with rain and planting crops might actually make things worse, not to mention the upkeep in trying to maintain the newfound garden. However, Superman is shouted down by the general populace, who point out that he's never really done anything to help the Earth outside of just beating up bad guys. Protex, though, points out that fear and mistrust is what destroyed the HyperClan's previous planet, and he's willing to talk things out with Superman to prove that the group is indeed Legitomite. Meanwhile, in the Justice League satellite, a group appears seemingly out of nowhere and blasts the craft with an electromagnetic pulse. They then breach the hull, forcing Green Lantern and Wonder Woman to try to fight them off, while Metamorpho, Iceman, Nukulon, and Obsidian head back to Earth. Unfortunately, all of the escape pods are unusable, leaving Metamorpho no other choice but to turn himself into a pod in order to protect the others. However, the strain of going through the Earth's atmosphere is too much, and the group winds up crashing to the Earth below.
For What Happened to Metamorpho, look up episode 125 of the Random Trade Review, where I covered the story arc from Outsiders called Looking for Trouble. As for Obsidian and Nukulon, well, they wound up popping up in JSA, with Nukulon taking the name Atom Smasher. As for Ice Maiden, she hasn't been heard from since, I think.
The rest of the League convenes, all except for Aquaman, who's refusing all calls. Protex has denied any connection to the attack on the satellite, but Superman doesn't believe him. Batman has Superman do a telescopic scan of microwave radiation, and it's revealed that it's containing a subliminal message extolling the virtues of the HyperClan. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, the HyperClan unearth a large structure that Protex refers to as the Temple of Zon-Zor. Similar structures appear in the Pacific Ocean and the Gobi Desert. Protex tells the press that these are watchtowers, which will allow the HyperClan to respond to emergencies in a timely manner. The League isn't buying this, though, as they discover the HyperClan's ship was nothing more than a holographic projection, and they prepare to take their fight to the clan. Breaking up into teams with Batman and Superman heading to the South Pole, Wonder Woman heading to the Pacific, and Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter heading to the Gobi Desert. Wonder Woman arrives at the facility in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where she's immediately jumped by both Fluxus and Tronics. The commotion of the fight soon brings a new challenger to the surface as Aquaman comes in riding atop a giant whale.
So yeah, we're dealing with the infamous harpoon-handed Aquaman here. Now, what happened was Aquaman was squaring off with a villain named Charybdis, who managed to neutralize and then acquire Aquaman's telepathic fish control. He then ordered a school of piranha to attack Arthur's hand while it was submerged in some water.
Aquaman says he ignored the League's calls because he really doesn't want anything to do with them. Still, he engages in a fight with Fluxus while Wonder Woman takes on Tronics. Fluxus shifts into the form of a whale in order to distract Aquaman, and then he attracts the Wonder Woman's attention long enough for Tronics to blast her. Meanwhile, Flash and Green Lantern arrive in the Gobi Desert, where they are jumped by Centurion, Zoom, and Armik. The Martian Manhunter should be with them as well, but he's gone missing. In fact, he's actually with Protex. Protex points out that Earth, and by extension the Justice League, will never fully accept Jean as one of their own, and he's better off partnering with the Hyper Clan, as it should be.
J'onn J'onzz is thought to be the last survivor of the Martian race. All Martians had super strength on par with Superman, as well as flying abilities, shape-shifting abilities, and atomic laser vision. In fact, the only weakness the Martians had was a strong aversion to fire. That might be important later on.
Back in the Gobi Desert, Flash squares off with Zoom in, appropriately enough, a race. The alien has the upper hand at first, but Wally drafts off his opponent long enough to catch up and catapult him into the atmosphere with a punch. He then races back to help Green Lantern against Centurion and Armik. However, many locals, still under the Hyper Clan's mind control, begin assaulting them, and the heroes are soon taken down. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, Batman and Superman come face to face with Protex, Primate, and Immortal. Superman moves to confront Protex while Batman blasts Immortal with heat-seeking missiles. However, the alien manages to direct the missiles back at the Batplane, and Superman watches Batman's fiery crash as Protex suddenly pulls out a chunk of kryptonite, and the exposure causes Superman to pass out. As they drag Superman off to the Tower of Zanzor, Primate and Immortal are wary of inspecting the fiery wreckage of the Batplane. Protex instructs them to pay no mind. Even if the Dark Knight did survive, he's one man with no powers, so there's nothing that can stop the Hyper Clan now.
I'm sure that's not going to come back to haunt them in any way.
The members of the Justice League are placed in a device called the Flower of Wrath. Superman is given a prime position with the kryptonite dangling just over his head. Protex gloats that humanity has turned on the League, the Martian Manhunter has turned on the League, and now everything is coming up HyperClan. It's then that the alarm sensors go off. It's Batman, and Immortal slips off to deal with him. He doesn't come back though, and a group of Centurion, Tronics, and Fluxus leaves to investigate. They find Immortal strung up in a room with a weird smell. It's then that Batman steps out and holds a box of matches. The fact that the aliens avoided the fiery crash has tipped them off as to who they really are. The smell is gasoline as the Caped Crusader strikes a match and flicks it to the floor.
Yes, the HyperClan are in fact Martians. However, these are not green Martians like J'onn J'onzz, who are way more into science, philosophy, education, and the arts. Instead, these are their warmongering cousins, the White Martians, who have the same abilities as the Green Martians, but obviously a much worse temperament. It eventually got so bad the Green Martians placed the White Martians in an extra-dimensional still zone for safekeeping, and appears the White Martians have recently broken out.
Protex is aghast at the sight of his compatriots being beaten by Batman. This shouldn't happen. He's one man. To which Superman replies, the most dangerous man on Earth. Irate, Protex orders the activation of the Flower of Wrath and the hidden Martian invasion fleet to attack. As he listens to the cries of terror from the people of Earth, Superman begins to piece things together. The HyperClan fear fire. They're probably Martians. Also, if he's under the effects of kryptonite, how is it that he can actually hear the screaming of the people of Earth when this is happening? The kryptonite's just an illusion, isn't it? Now hip to Protex's ruse, Superman breaks free and goes after the HyperClan's leader. Primate moves to stop them, but only to be stopped by Armik, who reveals himself to actually be J'onn J'onzz. Armik is still back in the Gobi Desert with the others. He then sets about freeing the other members of the Justice League. Zoom, Armik, and Centurion arrive at the South Pole to square off with the League. Flash and Green Lantern take down the big guy with, of all things, a ring of candles. As he squares off with Zoom, Aquaman points out that Martians have a marine-like brain, so he's actually susceptible to Aquaman's aquatic telepathy. He then causes the speedster to suffer a massive seizure. Wonder Woman's just a bit more bluntly, tying up Primate in her lasso of truth and taking her out into outer space. That just leaves Protex as he takes on Superman. Protex is turned back into his Martian form and tries to smother Superman by covering him up. But Superman turns himself into a drill and plows the two towards the Earth's mantle. Powers now neutralized, Superman drops Protex, who is then imprisoned with another ring of candles. Superman then takes control of the HyperClan's computer that was sending out the subliminal message, and he puts out a new one. He tells the people of Earth about the Martians and their aversion to fire. With some help from the Flash, people all over the planet are suddenly armed with various flaming objects. Still others have found a different way to defeat their attempted alien conquerors.
He's got a board with a nail in it!
Instead, humanity will...
Soon, the White Martians are defeated, with many being returned to the still zone from whence they came. J'onn apologizes for almost betraying the League, but he's been without his people for so long, he just kind of wanted to see if the HyperClan was capable of change. He's forgiven, as Superman points out he probably would have done the same if the aliens were Kryptonian.
Or, he would just kill them. It happened. Stop denying it.
As the weeks go by, the Earth looks on as the Sahara reverts to being a desert. Superman points out the best way to help humanity is to support it, not lead it. Be there to stand alongside and then pick it up when it stumbles. To that end, a new Justice League headquarters is built on the moon. Appropriately enough, it's called the Watchtower, and it's got a great view of a photorealistic Earth.
That concludes our look at JLA, New World Order. And yeah, if you didn't realize, this was basically the template for the pilot film to the DC Animated Universe Justice League series. It's obviously not a direct translation, but yeah, the stories are pretty much spot on similar. And there's kind of a reason for that. This story is great. There's some really spectacular artwork from Howard Porter in this. There's some great aw yeah action moments, like when Superman realizes what the Martian's gig is, Aquaman and Zoom, Batman dealing with the Martians, all of that just leads to some really great, punching action, great set piece moments. So much so it's kind of hard to describe, really. And yeah, it's just a really nice, compact, solid Justice League story. If I do have any complaints, it's that sometimes the characterization can be a little uneven. There's this weird kind of mini arc with Flash and Green Lantern that they don't really trust each other, that Wally doesn't think Kyle has earned the right to be Lantern yet, and it's like, Kyle Rayner had been Green Lantern for about 3 years. He was pretty firmly entrenched. Not really any point to have distrust there. And also I would say Wonder Woman doesn't do much in this story, unfortunately, but you know, when you're juggling a big cast, sometimes characters do get left out. And I would also point out, if you're one of those people who thinks Batman sometimes gets a little overpowered, then the story might not help your beliefs in that. I will say this to its defense, at least he's not beating the Martians in hand-to-hand combat, he's ensnaring them in traps and luring them into trick scenarios. He's not just out and out punching them like in other stories. But yeah, still, those are really minor quibbles. This is a must-read Justice League story if you want a great one. I'm going to give JLA New World Order an A. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.